makes total sense. I mean, we spoke a little bit about writing great requirements, a little bit about templates as well. What challenges do you see, if you see any, in the requirements methodology process in general? If you could share some.
What problems we see or challenges?
Yeah, just common. You could say common mistakes that teams do make during this requirements elicitation phase.
Yeah, I would say a lot of the stuff we touched earlier, that the requirements aren't singular, they're inconsistent, and they are they're just unclear. Right? Really, what you want your requirements at the end of the day to be clear, consistent, and correct. Right? And most of the issues and requirements come across when these aren't clear, consistent, and correct. I would say the challenges that a lot of the customers that we see facing now is it's difficult to instill this discipline onto the engineering teams because it's not yet recognized. In my mind, requirements writing is an engineering activity. You should bring to it an engineer's mind when you write requirements, as opposed to someone writing prose, right? So even though it's writing, it's not writing class, it's engineering. And only now are we seeing, we call requirements engineering. We see people with the title of requirement engineers. That is something that's still relatively new, and it's not really yet internalized in a lot of the companies. They see it almost as a necessary evil, not as something core to the product, right? As opposed to say testing, right? They say testing. Obviously, you have to have a test engineers. Otherwise, you're not a serious organization if you don't even have test engineers testing, your systems, right? They don't have the same view for requirements. To be frank, it didn't need to in the past. Right? It's only now that it's actually emerging. And I have theories about why that's emerging now, but it's becoming more and more important.
Well, we see the same thing from customers who use Excel spreadsheets and Word documents to do their engineering, and it's not until they get to this point where nothing is working anymore and they're completely, they can't figure out what's going on before they even think about having a requirements management tool of any kind to to actually keep track of those things automatically for them. So I definitely, we feel the same thing from our customers that you're seeing. So they just hadn't put a lot of effort into it.
That's right. Yeah, it hasn't seemed to be a very important thing. And people don't write requirements because they love writing requirements, right? Right? They write requirements because they have to write requirements, right? They can't get away with it, right? If there was a way they could have gotten away with it, they would, right?
Yes.
That's something that we should remember as we develop tooling for it, that we try to make it easy for them and have some kind of empathy for them. It's not really what the core job of what they want to do. And so, we spend a fair bit of time, as I bet you guys do, just educating the market, telling them why this is important to do. And the reason you're having all these issues in the later stages is because in the earlier stages, you've already sown the seeds of future problems and you didn't even realize you were doing that. And so if you want to eliminate problems at the source, you have to put more rigor in the front end of your process. And the value you gain from that compounds over time, right? And over time, if you look at most projects and you look at the cost curve and how does the cost increase as time goes on, it's an exponential curve, right? They burn money at the end and start doing all these rework and the deadlines are come and gone, so they're putting more resources in it to hurry it up. A lot of these problems stemmed from earlier on. If you invest then, the value compounds and you lower the cost curve overall. That also hints. Go ahead.
Well, it's the same thing when you're talking about writing code, right? If you write, if you find problems early in the development process, you don't have as big a problem at the end of the process. So it's very similar to in the requirement space that we typically don't see, and I'm sure you see the same thing. You find somebody that just went through some horrific project or whatever, and everything blew up, and they finally figured out they have to fix their requirements for the next one. And that's where, so we don't have to do a lot of education sometimes because they already know that this was a huge problem.
Yeah, we call it project trauma.
Yeah, exactly.